Hello, Rams family! Welcome to Rams Latest, your daily source for everything in and out of the Rams house. I'm your host, Brady Petrik. Before we get started, a quick shout out to Kalshi for sponsoring this episode. Download the Kalshi app and use code FANARTSFOOTBALL to get $10 when you trade $10. And a quick reminder to like, comment, and subscribe. A little bit from you goes a long way. And now, let's get into it. Sean McVay continued upending expectations surrounding the backup quarterback situation on Tuesday. During a presser where he was discussing the process of cutting down the preseason roster to the final 53-man list, McVay stated that he would be keeping three quarterbacks on the team, confirming that Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson will be listed behind Matthew Stafford on the depth chart. No news there, but McVay caused eyebrows to raise when he continued talking up his backups, saying, quote, "We feel fortunate that you got two guys that we believe in, really feel good about. One of those guys will be the backup in Australia," end quote. One of? Well, which one is it, McVay? This is an even more direct admission that the backup role is an unsettled matter, and that the team is giving real consideration to moving Ty Simpson up to the number 2 spot on the depth chart behind Stafford. As I said during yesterday's episode, Simpson's performance in the preseason has gone beyond what most people expected to see from him during his rookie year, as he showed an understanding of the offensive schemes and a comfortability with his receiving core that has rivaled what we've seen from Bennett during the same period. If you erased their biographies and went solely based on the eye test, I think the job would go to Simpson, but experience and familiarity with the team and playbook carry a lot of weight, so the advantage is still with Bennett. But still, this is yet another blow to Bennett's prospects as the long-term team backup. McVay was speaking pretty highly of Bennett during training camp and seemed ready to give him his biggest opportunities yet, as Bennett still hasn't been active for a regular season game. But that enthusiasm has waned in recent weeks as we've all gotten a taste of what the Ty Simpson Rams might look like. The plan has always been to spin up Simpson as the next starting quarterback for the inevitable day when Stafford leaves the team. But from what we've been hearing, it seems that the coaching staff is now open to Ty Simpson becoming a factor on the current iteration of the Rams offense. Again, he won't be taking the starting job from Stafford unless he decides to give it up, as I firmly believe that Staff could have 20 picks and still not be under threat of benching. But Simpson may have already proved that he would be the superior backup option on the roster, which is not something anyone expected coming out of the draft. Bennett's familiarity with the team and their offensive system is still his greatest asset, but that might not be enough to save his second string designation if Simpson is able to light up the Chargers on Thursday. I do believe that it would take a truly historic performance to unseat Bennett at this point in the preseason, as the Rams organization loves to reward loyalty and give their guys a chance to prove themselves. But we saw Ty Simpson turn in a historic performance during week 1 against the Chiefs, so never say never. It's most likely in the Rams' best interest to keep Bennett slotted as their backup just to up his value as a trade asset, since we know that Ty Simpson isn't going anywhere for a while. But in this all-in Super Bowl year, I wouldn't put it past McSnead and company to make an unconventional move and leapfrog Simpson up the roster if they think it gives them the best chance at winning it all. And based on what I've seen this preseason, I think I know which of these guys is more likely to win a game if called to do so. It's Simpson, for the record. Before we run down some Rams roster moves from the past few days, a quick break brought to you by our sponsors over at Marsmen. To be completely honest, watching football always makes me wish I was in a little bit better shape. I know I'm not making the Rams preseason roster, let alone the final 53, but seeing guys take the field who are the same age as me, or even younger, always inspires me to crank up my workout routine this time of year. A lot of guys can have issues getting back into familiar shape as they get older, and sometimes the same routines and diets just don't work the same way they used to. Lots of people assume the dad bod is the result of more beer, worse eating, and less exercise. But there's another factor worth paying attention to as we get older: testosterone. Testosterone levels can naturally decline with age, and maintaining healthy levels is one part of supporting muscle growth, body composition, and daily energy. That's where Marsmen comes in. Marsmen is a natural supplement designed to support healthy testosterone levels and exercise performance using all natural ingredients without any stimulants or synthetic hormones. Healthy testosterone levels can help your body burn fat more efficiently, build lean muscle, and recover more completely from your workouts. And over 91% of men report higher energy levels after continued use. Marsmen is made in the USA, third-party tested, and it's now available at GNC nationwide. And there's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it without feeling like you're locked in. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, free shipping, and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. And after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about Marsmen. Please support our show and tell them that FanArt sent you. Again, that's mengotomars.com for 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts when you check out. And now, back to Rams football. With September just around the corner, the clock is ticking for all the teams in the league to lock in their rosters for the year. Culling the squad from the 90-man preseason roster to the final 53 can be a heartbreaking task, especially for a team like the Rams who have been so dominant during the preseason. You hate to lose any guys who demonstrated an ability to execute on the field, but the Rams won't be able to keep everyone they saw a flash from these past 2 weeks. That's just the nature of the beast. So while I know that most of the third and fourth stringers I mentioned this past month won't be making their way down to Melbourne for week 1, I wanted to stake my claim on a few names who I think the Rams should definitely hold on to as they make their final decisions. Let me start by saying that I will not be mentioning Dean Connors on this list, because on this podcast, Dean Connors' appreciation is understood without being spoken. If he doesn't make the cut, I'm going to be devastated, but regular viewers already knew that, so I'm going to focus on a few other guys who are in need of a little extra spotlight shine. But in honor of Dean Connors, let's start off on the offensive side of the ball. From what I was seeing during my days at training camp up through the most recent game, one new receiver has differentiated himself from the rest, and that's Brennan Presley. Presley has risen above the other receivers in his class with his game time production, special teams flexibility, and maybe most importantly, his chemistry with both Stetson Bennett and Ty Simpson. In the first game of the preseason against the Chiefs, Presley led the team in receiving yards with 58 after going a perfect 4 for 4 on his targets, including a 23-yard catch and run that tied Mark Redmond for the longest catch of the day. He remained consistently productive in week 2, logging another 4 catches for 35 yards on 6 targets. Simpson and Bennett took the majority of snaps in each of those games respectively, and Presley had the most consistent production of any receiver across those 2 games. So no matter who's under center, he's able to get himself found on the field. And since the backup quarterback situation is still very much up in the air, having a player who doesn't depend on one guy over the other could remove some headaches for the Rams as they puzzle together their second string offense. Ironically, there's nothing better for securing a player spot on the offense than competent special teams play, as a guy who can double dip adds value by freeing up a roster position that would otherwise have to go to a dedicated special teamer. Presley was getting spun up as a kick returner during training camp and absolutely delivered on this front during game time, with 2 stellar kickoff returns against the Chiefs, one for 29 yards and one for 30, as well as an 11-yard punt return against the Saints. He had vision, speed, and tackle breaking ability that allowed him to motor down the field to give his offense prime field position for their drives. And the fact that he was equally proficient at punt returning and kick returning adds yet another element of versatility to his game. Getting a backup receiver, kick returner, and punt returner all in one is, as Charlie Kelly would say, a pretty sweet deal. I've said before that the Rams should try to find a consistent and efficient kick returner, as the Seahawks showed us last year that a dangerous returner can swing a game all by himself, and it appears that with Presley, the Rams are the closest they've been in ages to having a real difference maker on special teams. If Xavier Smith ends up with another costly drop during the season, I want to see an immediate switch over to Presley, because I think he has the goods and the hands to deal consistent damage on special teams. Jumping over the line now to the defensive side of the ball, and if you watched any of the Rams' defensive snaps against the Chiefs, then odds are pretty good that you know this number, if not the name, of the next guy on the list. But I don't blame you for that, as even the NFL's official scouting report spelled his name wrong. Number 45, Nick Anderson, with an E instead of an O, absolutely feasted during his first action against the Chiefs. An undrafted free agent who was brought in to add some depth at the safety position, Anderson was a standout during his time at Wake Forest, where he played in 57 games as a 5-year letterman and finished his career with the most passes defended in program history with 27. During his first game with the Rams, Anderson proved that those stats were no fluke, as his biggest play on the day came in the form of a broken up pass intended for Jason Brownlee that would have turned into a 94-yard touchdown. Anderson was able to fly downfield and get a hand on the receiver to prevent him from coming up with what would have been a tide-turning score. One highlight in that first game would have been plenty to help distinguish Anderson from the rest of the rotational players, but he also had an arguably more impressive defended pass that went in and out of the hands of Chiefs rookie Omari Evans. Coming across from top coverage, Anderson's awareness and speed allowed him to fly towards Evans just in time to knock the ball free and out of bounds in what otherwise would have been a blown play by the Rams defense. Beyond these 2 impressive plays, Anderson always seemed to be on camera whenever a Chiefs player was getting up off the ground, even if he didn't come away with the tackle himself, which speaks to his ball tracking ability and commitment to finishing the play. Anderson didn't have quite the same level of omnipresence during the matchup with the Saints, so he may be in need of one more big performance against the Chargers in order to solidify his place among the final 53. He'll most likely be in direct competition with Alex Cook for the final safety position. And even though Cook had the play of the game last week with his 100-yard touchdown return, I prefer Anderson's ball tracking ability and down-to-down impact over the flash-in-the-pan one-off miracle play we saw from Cook. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the safety play in this Chargers game, as I think it'll have the most bearing on the final roster selections of any position group. And finally today, another player who's hoping to escape the shadow of Alex Cook, and that's Wesley Bailey. While he didn't come up with the big pick 6 against the Saints, Bailey did play a part in the other interception of the game, applying hard pressure to Zach Wilson, which resulted in a poor pass that got scooped up by A.Z. Hamilton for a Rams turnover. This was an impressive pressure for Bailey, but for him, it was honestly just a numbers game, as he had 10 total quarterback pressures on the day, including 4 quarterback hits. Those prolific numbers put his stats on the same page as Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, and Jonathan Cooper, who are the only other defenders to notch 10 or more pressures in a preseason game since 2023. If that doesn't stand out to the Rams, then I don't know what else they could be looking for. Bailey has his work cut out for him if he wants to see any starter play this season, as he's currently behind second-string flex piece Josiah Stewart on the depth chart, as well as starters Byron Young and, Myles Garrett. Even with Micah Parsons' levels of production, I don't think Bailey will be knocking any of those guys off the starting block anytime soon. But his performance on Saturday proved that he's head and shoulders above the rest of the rotational players that the Rams are considering at linebacker, and he should be slotted right next to Stewart to supply the team with consistent pressure whenever their starting pair needs to miss time. If the Rams don't end up bringing Bailey onto the team, I would be genuinely shocked, and he might even end up starting for another team this year if he doesn't make the cut in LA. With final roster decisions being made, there's still one question that the Rams need to answer, and it's a big one. In fact, by volume, it's the biggest question of their entire offense. Who's going to step up for Puka Nacua at the start of the season? The question is actually a question wrapped inside a question, as the Rams still haven't received word from the league regarding any suspension time for Puka. There's an assumption that he'll miss at least one game as a result of violating the NFL's personnel policy this offseason, but we have yet to hear anything official. Still, a suspension seems pretty likely, and it would be foolish of the Rams to continue forward assuming that everything will work out for the best. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail, after all. So if Puka isn't able to suit up for the Rams at the Week 1 kickoff in Melbourne, who will be the recipient of his league-leading volume? The first and most obvious answer would appear to be Davante Adams, as he is the number 2 receiver on the team and has a pedigree of top performance to back him up. But Davante is getting up there in age and can't tank hits the way that Puka can. And while he was productive last season, leading the league in receiving touchdowns, those scores typically came on highly specialized looks on the goal line rather than through pure volume. I think that asking Davante to burn at Puka's level would be asking for a blowout, and the team really can't afford to lose both of these guys. The next man up would be Jordan Whittington, who locked in his position as the new Rams number 3 receiver during the preseason. Whittington has shown a similar skill set that we're used to seeing from Puka, lining up both short and deep and demonstrating impressive yards after the catch capabilities that make use of his surprising physicality. Whittington has the track record to prove that he can step up in a lead role. Over a 2-game stretch in his 2024 rookie season, when both Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were out with injuries, Whittington caught 72% of his targets, going 13 of 18 for 151 yards. With another year of familiarity with the offense, as well as more complementary suite of pass catchers around him, it would be safe to assume that he could match, if not exceed, his previous level of play. Whittington is looking like the most reliable option on the table. Further down the depth chart, the Rams have a number of competent receivers who could definitely perform admirably if called upon. Team vets Konate Mumfield and Xavier Smith have both shown in the past that they can make a big impact speeding downfield for deep balls, but their specialized utilization and, I hate to say it, hands mean that they probably would offer diminishing returns if they had to see excessive action in the short game. No, if the Rams want a real shot at replacing the high upside play they get from Puka, I think they should be trying to recreate the situation that led to Puka becoming a standout guy in the first place. I think they need to lean on a rookie, and they have just the guy. If you're a regular viewer, you already know where I'm going with this. I think CJ Daniels is the answer to the Puka Nacua problem. Daniels is another overly talented late-round prospect who didn't excel in any one specific area on the stat sheet, but does damage thanks to his all-around capabilities. He's a great route runner and can create separation off the line with smart footwork and quick cuts. He can get open quickly for dump-offs, keep a play alive over the middle, or bomb his way downfield to make himself available for a big grab. And with his impressive wingspan and super glue hands, he's a deep threat with massive scoring potential who can pluck balls out of the air in the quarter of the end zone. We saw all of these skills working together in concert during Saturday's game against the Saints, when Daniels led the team in targets, catches, and yards on the day by making himself available all over the field. He probably would have even come away with a touchdown if Stetson Bennett had allowed the play to develop more before throwing it to Daniels midfield in the red zone. I know it usually makes coaches uneasy to slot in an unknown quantity at the number 1 spot, and if they want to take the safe route, they'll probably upgrade Whittington and fill his spot with either Mumfield or Smith for sake of consistency. But Puka's breakout in 2023 proved that sometimes all a player needs is room to run, and I think that CJ Daniels has shown more upside potential than any of these other players I mentioned. Getting him on the field early will improve his comfort level, establish him as a threat to draw coverage for future defenses, and, most importantly, allow him to start building a connection with Matthew Stafford. If the Rams want to win the Super Bowl this year, they're going to need a skilled third receiver to pick up the slack when Puka and Davante can't make the catch, for one reason or another. And if they think Daniels can be the guy, then the best time to get him on the field is as soon as possible. And now, a quick break brought to you by our sponsors over at Kalshi. Before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. If you're like me and you expect Puka Nacua to miss any amount of time this year, then you should also expect Davante Adams to see an uptick in his usage at the start of the season. He may be another year older, but his technique hasn't gone anywhere, and he should still be as reliable as ever after another offseason building up chemistry with Matthew Stafford, especially if his #1 receiver is missing any amount of time. Right now on Kalshi, Davante has 43% odds to get 10 or more receiving touchdowns this season, so a $100 trade would net you a $224 payout. That number even accounts for a downshift in production compared to last year, when he had 14 touchdowns while playing in only 14 out of 17 games. And with a clean bill of health for Davante coming out of the preseason, he should have even more opportunities than he did last year to find pay dirt in the end zone. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probabilities change, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use code FANARCHFOOTBALL to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. Finally today, a bit of historical absurdity coming out of the Cleveland locker room this week. It appears that the Browns will never cease to push the boundaries of shamelessness, although this one is admittedly less their fault than usual. Earlier this offseason, the Browns signed undrafted free agent tight end Daquan Wright after he was cut by the Eagles, and gave him the opportunity to make the team during the preseason. Wright failed to impress, and ended up getting cut this week as the Browns put together their final roster. So far, nothing out of the ordinary. But the strangeness of this situation is in what happened after Wright was let go, as he immediately had an offer to join with another team, the LSU Tigers. That's right, Daquan Wright is going full Billy Madison and heading back to school. For the first time in NFL history, Really, a player who made an NFL roster has left the league and gone back to college to continue playing football. Ever the lightning rod of controversy, Tigers head coach Lane Kiffin has officially decided that he's over even pretending to play by the same rules as everybody else. Last year, he abandoned the team he was coaching at Ole Miss to accept the LSU job in the middle of the season, a move so brazen that the entire concept of changing horses midstream should just be shortened to the Kiffin. Rather than keeping his head down and trying to earn back some dignity by winning football games, Kiffin has decided to create an even bigger nightmare for himself and his new org by breaking 100 years of precedent before the 2026 season has even kicked off. As a reminder, no player has ever moved from the pros back to the collegiate level, and there's a reason for that. NCAA guidelines expressly outline that their sports programs are for amateur competitors, and as much as recent trends like the transfer portal and NIL rights have thrown the term amateur into contention, there's no arguing that this was clearly a line in the sand that couldn't be crossed. Oregon head coach Dan Lanning put it well, saying, quote, "It used to be once you had an agent or once you went and did the combine, all those things qualified as you were no longer an amateur. You're a professional now once you declare for the draft. So to let any of those players come back, fair or unfair to them, it's unfair to the sport. And I think it's unfair to the players that are on current teams for those guys to be coming back." End quote. Well said, Dan. Kiffin leveraged the unofficialness of precedent to get a leg up on his competition, using NFL scouts as his own sniffer dogs and scooping up players that every other college team assumed were unavailable due to the obviousness of their situations. It's not even like Daquan Wright never went to college. He finished his third year at Ole Miss. Well, how about that? So while he still technically has eligibility to play another season in the NCAA, the whole amateur-non-amateur issue should have prevented him from being recruited. But there are no rules anymore, so back to the Lane Kiffin offense he goes. This situation comes at the tail end of an offseason that has already seen the thin veil between college and pro football dissolve even further. Quarterback Brendan Sorsby tried to declare for the supplemental draft after being suspended from college ball for gambling, testing the limits of how far the two entities would be willing to go to enforce each other's rules. With Daquan Wright officially hopping from college to the pros and back to college again, it appears that the amateur game and the pro game are interchangeable, and the players can go between the two whenever it's convenient for them. Needless to say, this opens up a gigantic can of worms concerning eligibility. Would Wright have been allowed to return if he had made the 53-man roster? What if he was cut after this week's preseason game? What if he got waived with an injury? Would he be eligible to go back to college next year to improve his tape? Would he still be eligible after sitting out for a year with an injury? How many games does someone have to play to be considered professional instead of amateur? Would he have been allowed to go back if he got cut after a single game? Would it have mattered if he had taken any on-field snaps during that game or not? How many snaps in a regular season game does it take to turn an amateur into a professional? And don't get me started on the prospect of guys who retire from the league going back to college football since they aren't professionals anymore. As for Wright, I don't necessarily blame him for what he's doing. The guy is a football player, and he's looking for any team that's willing to take him. So who can fault the guy for going where the opportunity is? This is the league's fault, both leagues, for extending him eligibility. There's always the possibility that the media firestorm causes the NCAA to roll back this decision, but for now, we've officially entered a brave new world of college recruiting. No more flying out to talk to high schoolers or giving star ratings to recruits. The top college programs can just wait until the final NFL rosters are submitted, then go and grab all the guys who came up short of being able to start in the pros. I mean, why try harder, right? Well, that's all we've got today for Rams Latest. I'm Brady Petrik, and until next time, go Sheep.